What do biblical examples teach about reflecting on God's goodness? Imagine walking through life and noticing how every step is guided by kindness and mercy. Biblical stories show us that reflecting on God's goodness is more than just a thought. It's a way of life. When we look at these stories, we see that God's goodness is shown through His love, mercy, and care for His people. These stories teach us that God's goodness is steady, generous, and often revealed through His actions in our everyday lives. God's character is at the heart of His goodness. The Bible describes Him as righteous and gracious. For example, Psalm 145 says that God satisfies the desires of every living thing and shows compassion to all creation. This means that everything in nature and in our relationships can remind us of God's goodness if we pay attention. When we see a beautiful sunset or experience kindness from others, it's a sign of God's ongoing goodness. Biblical stories also show us how God's goodness is expressed through His actions. Joseph's story is a great example. Even when Joseph faced betrayal and hardship, God used those difficult moments for good. Joseph's forgiveness of his brothers teaches us that trusting God's plan can bring healing and restoration. Ruth's loyalty to Naomi shows how faithfulness and love reflected God's goodness. The parable of the Good Samaritan teaches us that true goodness goes beyond social barriers and calls us to show kindness to everyone. The story of the prodigal son highlights God's unconditional love. The Father's forgiveness shows that God's mercy is always available, no matter what mistakes we make. These stories reminded us that God's goodness is not based on our actions but on His nature and promises. Reflecting on these examples helps us see how God's goodness is present in our lives, even in small moments. For college students trying to keep their faith strong, reflecting on God's goodness means intentionally noticing His presence. It could be through a beautiful sunrise, a kind word from a friend, or answered prayers. Paying attention to these moments helps us trust God more and grow spiritually. It also encourages us to respond with gratitude and kindness, showing God's goodness to others. Biblical examples teach us that reflecting on God's goodness can change how we live. When we accept Jesus' gift of salvation, we start a journey of growing in goodness. This growth shapes how we treat others and handle challenges. Even in busy college life, remembering God's goodness helps us stay grounded and hopeful. In the end, reflecting on God's goodness involves recognizing His faithful and compassionate character in everything around us. It means trusting His plan during tough times and showing kindness and forgiveness to others. Being mindful of God's blessings in daily life helps us grow spiritually. This habit of reflection keeps us rooted in faith and encourages us to live in a way that reflects God's goodness every day.